Augustus, as you probably know, was the first emperor of Rome, and his reign was somewhat controversial. One of the most important ways in which Augustus maintained his power in Rome, maintained his kingship, was using propaganda to prolong and to stabilize his regime. One famous Roman historian, Ronald Syme, has commented that the princeps, which is a Roman word for king, a Latin word for king, the king, now a monopolist of the means of influencing public opinion, used all of his arts to persuade men to accept the Principate and its program. And in all of Roman history, there is no place, no piece of art where Augustus' use of propaganda is more visible than in the Ara Pacis Augustae. The Ara Pacis was actually dedicated on January 30th, 9 BC, which was the birthday of the emperor's wife, Livia. And that's a very important date to remember. There's 365 days in a year. There's 365 days in a year, and Augustus chose his wife's birthday to finish it and to dedicate it for public use. And this altar remains the most important piece of Augustan age Roman architecture, and it really does stand as one of the greatest monuments to the leadership of Augustus. At the time the altar was built, Rome was experiencing a peace that had never before been felt in the entire world. Edward Gibbon, who was probably the greatest Roman historian of the last 500 years, once said that if there was one time in the entire history of the world where the vast majority of it were at peace, it was during and after the reign of Augustus. So that's very important to remember, that Augustus brought in this peace. The Ara Pacis, the building of the Ara Pacis was announced in 13 BC by the Roman Senate, and it was to celebrate the emperor's return from his third provincial tour in the Roman province of Spain and Gaul. And Augustus was in Spain and Gaul for a very long time. And while he was in Spain and Gaul, famine broke out in Rome and people were starving, and there was sickness. So people even noted that when Augustus left Rome, there might not be war, but people were still starving, hungry, and sick. And they attributed that to Augustus leaving. In his autobiographical funeral inscription, Augustus wrote, "On my return to Spain and Gaul, after successfully restoring law and order to these provinces, the Senate decided, under the consulship of Tiberius Nero and Publius Quintilius, to concentrate the Ara Pacis Augustae on the Campus Martius in honor of my return, at which the officials, priests, and vestal virgins should offer an annual sacrifice." So I want you to pay attention to the name there. The Ara Pacis Augustae is what was dedicated. The altar to the peace of Augustus. It was not the altar to peace. It was not the altar to the peace of Rome. And it was not even the altar to the peace of the gods. It was the altar to the peace of Augustus. So Augustus was trying to make people understand that peace was in Rome only because of him. And that is the purpose of the Ara Pacis. The depiction of Aeneas, we see it's pretty good, but unfortunately Romulus and Remus really not there anymore. So everything you see is just a drawing added by a later artist. And it's just a guess as to what it may have looked like. We're not positive exactly. On the north frieze is a formal state procession of Roman senators that has senators, priests, and other government officials offering thanks for Augustus's peace. The southern frieze shows members of Augustus's imperial family in a similar procession. In both groups, you can see that they're heading towards the front of the Ara Pacis, presumably to offer sacrifice. Augustus is featured prominently in the front, and unfortunately for him, all that's left is his head. But from his head, we can see that he's wearing a leaf crown, which symbolizes his head as symbolizes his head of the Roman religion. In this procession, we don't only see Augustus, but also Agrippa, who is Augustus's general and his son-in-law. Gaius, Augustus's grandson. Tiberius, Augustus's stepson. And every single person there is related to him, but maybe it would be a little boring if I told you what each person was. But most importantly, I think, is his wife, Livia. These depictions, these statues right here, are the earliest representations we have of Augustus's family. The rear of the building is divided by an exit. The northeastern panel has also not really survived. We don't know exactly what it looks like, but art historians believe that it's a depiction of the goddess Roma. Roma was the goddess of the city, and in the original image, she sits on top of captured weapons, once again symbolizing that Rome, through Augustus, has brought peace. So, the Tellus panel is, again in my opinion, the most important aspect to the Ara Pacis Augustae. And every part of it leads back to Augustus. This woman we see here sitting on a swan, any guesses who she is supposed to be? And any idea who this woman is? Hera? Okay, that's a good guess, but not quite.
Leda? Leda?
No, also a good guess. It's supposed to be Venus, or Aphrodite, the goddess of love. And everywhere in Greek imagery, Aphrodite is pictured with a swan. So, with one swan, Augustus reminds us that he comes from a god. On the opposite side is a woman sitting on a snake, or dragon. Any idea who this woman is? No? Yeah, it's kind of a crazy picture. Woman on a snake. The woman, I think, is supposed to represent Adia. I'll start with the snake first. The snake is supposed to represent the god Apollo, who sometimes took the form of the snake. And the woman is supposed to represent Adia, who actually was Augustus's mother. A story that Augustus liked to share with everybody is that his mom was a woman, but his dad was the god Apollo. And this image actually appears not frequently, but many times in other pieces of Roman art. Directly across from the Ara Pacis is the Obeliscus Augustae, the obelisk of Augustus. And it's an ancient obelisk from Egypt. This is what it looks like today in St. Peter's Square in Rome. And so you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but trust me, on it are Egyptian hieroglyphics. It's a very, very old obelisk, and it comes from way before Augustus. But following the Battle of Actium, where Augustus defeated his rival Antony and Antony's girlfriend Cleopatra, Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. And moreover, it became kind of Augustus's private area. All of the empire was administered by the Roman Senate, except for Italy and Egypt. Egypt was Augustus's his place. And so, Marcus Agrippa, the son-in-law in general that we saw on the Ara Pacis, on 10 BC, removed this obelisk from Egypt, put it right in the middle of the Campus Martius, and directly across from the Ara Pacis. Now, in Rome, in this area, there's lots and lots of buildings. This is not how it looked. This takes away all the other buildings. But you can see how closely the obelisk is to the Ara Pacis. And notice the shadow from it. That creates a giant sundial, so people can tell the time just by looking at the obelisk. I think it's pretty clear the importance of this obelisk, why it was brought to Rome, why it was put next to the Ara Pacis. We have this huge obelisk to tell time, but it's kind of useless because it's in the middle of nowhere. Roman people wouldn't see it on a daily basis and be like, oh, that's right, it's 4 o'clock, I need to go home. They would occasionally see this giant obelisk next to the Ara Pacis, and they would remember that Augustus is the one that ended Egyptian rule. Augustus was the one that brought Egypt into Rome, and Augustus was the one that brought peace to the entire Roman world. Now, one thing that I think is very interesting about this is it was designed, or its placement was designed in such a way so that on Augustus's birthday, the shadow would fall and point directly at the Ara Pacis. Only day of the year where the shadow would go directly into the Ara Pacis, which is a pretty good reminder. You have the altar to peace, and on Augustus's birthday, the shadow points right at it. Because who brought peace? Augustus brought peace. One commentator noted that in the with the obelisk's proximity to the Ara Pacis expresses perhaps more clearly than any other monument the ideology of the Augustan age, the peaceful union of Rome with her emperor, with her empire, and I would add her emperor. Rome was at peace. The Ara Pacis is nominally a monument to the people of Rome, but really it's there to remind people that Rome is at peace solely because of Augustus. And that's why his wife, his father, and his great-great-great-great-great-grandmother all appear on the Ara Pacis. It was his destiny to bring peace to the Roman people. The use of an Egyptian obelisk to cast its shadow on the Ara Pacis demonstrates that Rome and Augustus' victory was complete. The world was ruled by Rome, Augustus ruled Rome, and the world was at peace, so Augustus brought peace. Alright, that's, I'm done.